emotions and have strategies to really build them and set themselves up for success. I've been in the personal development world for about 14 years. My main modality that I love is hypnotherapy and energetics. So I'm very intuitive based. Here in Australia, we have a system called NDIS. So I work a lot with the disability scheme. So a lot of children with disabilities, ADHD, autism. My son's autistic. I'm a mama bear of three. And even though I look very young, I'm 42. So loads and loads of life experience. What you see is what you get. You can ask me absolutely anything. The reason that I'm here and still standing and breathing today is because of amazing coaches like yourself and people that bring personal development into this world, because a coach saved me like when I was in my midst of drug addiction. So I've lived about 9 lives this lifetime, and what I found is that every time I learned a new modality, whether it was cold baths, breath work, meditation, voice therapy, whatever that was, if you bring it to the children, the whole world changes. They get it so easily. So I know that was a lot. There's a little bit of a tangent, but you can pick and choose anything from there. That's a little bit about me.
Perfect. So what I would like to do is start from the very beginning. You highlighted that you had a drug addiction. So when did that start, and how far into the addiction did you end up in?
Yeah, good question. I guess it started in my 20s, like on and off, like raves and partying and what in Australia we call pills, so MDMA, speed back then, and then in my 30s, very well, yeah, just turned 30, I got into ice, which I'm not sure what you guys call it over there. It's like crack. You smoke it in a pipe, and my addiction got to an everyday use with me and my ex-husband, and it was horrific. It was just a really bad place, but I honestly believe it kept me alive because it was the way that I could zone out and function. I'm very grateful that I was a functioning addict. I didn't really lose my soul. I didn't steal or hurt anybody, but I definitely didn't pay my mortgage and nearly lost my house. And I wanted to die. It was a really painful time. And in that time, I had gone to Australian services, drug and alcohol counseling. I'd been to psychologists, I've been to doctors. And the one thing that helped get me sober was finding a hypnotherapist. And he stared at me, and he was an energetic healer. And I couldn't even look him in the eyes. I thought I could feel it. My whole body shifted. And in that one session, I knew that I would get sober, leave my ex-husband, and become sober with my children and just have a beautiful light life of love and light. But it took me a little bit to get there. But I haven't stopped journeying and healing and learning since.
I want to say first and foremost, congratulations on overcoming that. I know many people when they share that story, they would say that Terrain, you don't ever eliminate the addiction. Every day is a work to get through it. Is that still something that holds true for you?
I think addictions morph into different places and spaces. So I don't have a inkling to want to go and do drugs again. It's not that I don't think about it or dream about it sometimes, but it's definitely not a desire at all. But it turned into food for a while there, alcohol, work became an addiction. So just being really careful that addiction behavior, that strategy is still within me. What I had to learn was that she's not a dark and nasty thing to shame or hold back. That part of me is very crafty, very clever, very beautiful. And if used in the right way and with love, addiction can be a beautiful part if you use it in healthy ways for ambition and for drive and not shun. But it's different for every single person. An addictive mind is yeah, the devil's playground, really.
I think that is something that happened to me. I remember a time when this is in my 20s, right? And I look back and I used to read so much, but one thing I loved about reading was that you can Google and you can find out all these stuff. So there's this website, and I'm not going to throw it under the bus, but it had like crime stories.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember reading about the Green River serial killer. I remember reading about John Wayne Gacy, all these like prolific serial killers of the United States and around the world. And after a while, I think I became addicted because every day I had to find a new person to read about, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're right how addiction, sometimes we think addiction is sex, drugs, gambling, whereas it's food, it's men, it's women, it's work. And that's probably one that gets,
Social
that
media.
flies, social media, right? Like it
Yeah.
flies under the radar quite a bit because how many people will miss their child's birthday or big events because of work?
Mhm.
That is an addictive behavior, right? So for you, when you're helping parents, kids, families, how are you working with them to make sure that they're staying balanced as possible within the world?
Good question. Every single human is different. I do have my own modality where I check their wheel of balance within their home life, within their empowerment, connection, and love. I will also offer, by the way, guys, I'm the kids coach on Facebook and Insta, but I have a 5-day free program that people can watch. But every single person is different when it comes to what they need and what they balance. But being the right coach or teacher for them is by empowering them to choose. So I never work with a family or a child unless they pick me, which is the big yes. Like children don't get a choice. They don't get to pick their teacher, their doctor, their OT, their psychologist. And so I always let them pick me. And in that moment, from 2 to 18, if I'm playing on the floor and getting, messy in games, or if I'm interviewing a teenager and talking about addiction or, depression, they always get the choice. And when they say yes, then you can do anything with them. And so finding what they need, they innately know what they need. Like, you know what you need, but you need a coach and a guide to go, hey, what's in there? No, even a little bit deeper. You've got it in your heart, in your soul. What do you need? And by holding space, and I might not say it that way for somebody else, that person is so seen and so loved and so felt that they have that safe space to express themselves. And if they don't know, then you help them find it. Mm.
And as you're helping them find it, have you noticed what are some of the commonalities maybe that some of these children are struggling with in their
Yeah.
life?
So a lot of children are struggling with anxiety and overwhelm. They're just struggling with a lot of anger, which is a surface layer emotion, but it's a protective emotion. They're struggling with not feeling safe at school, so bullying. And so it's really building up their own resilience and understanding that it's okay to express these emotions in healthy ways. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to say no in certain circumstances, expressing their vulnerability and their boundaries. So teaching them all these things that we learn in personal development at, in our 20s, maybe 30s or 40s, if we bring it to our children, then they shift and they learn it so effortlessly and easily. And it's one thing that's really not covered in the education system. The curriculum is, reading and writing and, arithmetic and the rest, but emotional well-being and mindset should actually be an actual a curriculum piece as well, an actual piece. Mm.
I think they have to revamp the education system to include some of the things that you mentioned. I remember that in elementary school, I was bullied a little bit, and I shared this story earlier today, and I told someone that it was like the prequel to like Django Unchained, where everyone that did me wrong, I went back and I was able to get my revenge on them, right? But one of the things that it left me with is that even though I felt in a way that I conquered my fears and my bullies and things of that nature, it kind of left me with an empty feeling because I wish I had a coach back then because
Yeah.
it seems to be more of like a 2000s thing, right? Like in the 90s, they're
Yeah.
like coaches, like you don't need that. Talk to your parents or man up, as they would say,
Yeah.
right? Is that some of the conversations that maybe you are having with the parents who are a little bit skeptical, but they're like, okay, let's see where this goes.
100%, 100%. I honestly didn't realize with the diversity of what I'd been through, I thought I would coach, other adults with addiction or depression or parents themselves, relationship issues. But when I kept, learning these modalities, it just kept downloading me to make it a game for kids and bring it to children and express it to them. I'm, a mum of three. And so when I realized this just earlier this year. I was like, oh my God, I was 7 and I was deeply lonely and I was people pleasing and I'd moved schools and I didn't have friends. And it was a really hard time for me. And it's not that I grew up in a household that didn't care, they just didn't know. And I am now the coach that I needed when I was 7. And I'm bringing that to those kids because every single human being, but every single kid needs to feel loved and worthy and feel like somebody's proud of them and that they've got this. And all of those innate things, like, it gives me tingles. Like every single person wants to feel loved and worthy and somebody's got their back and that they're proud of them and they've got this role model. And when you say that to another human being, especially a child, like it's absolutely amazing. So yes, I'm a coach that I needed when I was a child. It comes back to that inner child healing. And that's what the parents are looking for. They're looking for that other option apart from education and medical.
Yes, because as a child, I look back on my childhood, it was hard for me to ask someone to love me the way that I
Yeah.
wanted to be loved. Was that something that you could have done for yourself? Could you have asked that question?
So for me, it wasn't love. Like I actually believe my superpower is unconditional love. I had unconditional love. I still do, and I gift that very freely. What I needed as a child to know that I was worthy and that I didn't need to be anybody else but Nichole. And I was so insecure and I so people pleased and behaved badly, just wanting for connection. And now I innately say I'm unique and authentic and I can be the best, like, and just be me. And people do genuinely love me. But that's what I needed when I was a child. Like, you are, don't change for anybody. You've got this. Everything you need is inside of you. And people will genuinely like you for who you are.
I look at some of the kids today and they have maybe their struggles a little bit different than, let's say, when you and I were growing up, right? You're not that much older than I am. And for me, when I felt unworthy, when I felt alone, it was in comparison to the people around me, right? Like I felt alone because of maybe my parents, my uncle, my cousins. Now
Mm-hmm.
that we're all plugged in into what some people call quote unquote the matrix of social media, I could be lonely because when I look at Nichole and she's surrounded by 5 friends, I only have 3,
Mm.
right? Like, do you combat the different dynamic whereas children today have that type of struggle because their field of view is so much wider than maybe ours years ago?
Correct. Correct. There is a huge impact on children's behaviors, emotions, and strategies this day and age now. They get connection from their gaming, from social media. My 17-year-old, he's actually got a best friend in New Zealand, which is amazing. He games with him. But I've really had to integrate in, like, this is not reality. This is not normality. Picking them up on the language that they use when they're gaming, because you wouldn't speak like that to another human being face to face. There's the ups and downs of social media, and making sure that they do unplug from that matrix and do get out there and experience one-on-one connection. I mean, here we are plugged in, and so here we are. It is beautiful, but making sure that we do get outside that house and we do get it back into nature and we do move our bodies and we do get back into some of those things that actually cost nothing but are so innately healthy and in need for us. So it is really that balance.
One of my neighbors, he had a party for his uncle, and he was telling me it was this beautiful festival. It was after all the lockdowns because if people remember, a couple of years ago, we could even see your lover if they didn't live in the same house.
Mm-hmm.
And he painted a story where everyone is he felt like they're like liberated, they're free, and people are gathering. It's such a beautiful event. And the birthday boy, he was suffering anxiety, and he's
Mm-hmm.
someone that was in his mid 50s. Is because he spent so much time alone. He kind of developed this social anxiety where he went from a extrovert to like an introvert, and then he was like a shut in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what happened is he was unable to even be social at his own party. And when I look at children who maybe don't have the experience like you and I, who could benefit from what we have gone through, because that's probably why we became coaches, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, take me through it your step by step, because I want to learn how do you get them to the point where they say, okay, Nichole, I'm buying into what you're saying.
Mhm.
Now swim. You're on your own.
Yeah. Um, so, well, every child is different, again, and it comes back to my like that connect, empower, play, grow. I have taught 110 coaches here in Australia, and every coach is different. We've got, thousands of life coaches, business coaches, whatever else, kids coaching. I have teachers that have left the business and doing it in different ways, and chefs and yogis and holistic therapists, and then trauma informed, and then mums with beautiful life skills who've raised 3 to 20 kids themselves, who have the skill set. Coaching is so diverse when it comes. So the number one is getting a child to pick you. Two, it could be with the child 1 to 20 sessions. It could be a year. It really depends on what they innately need, because they get it so quickly. You and I were like, hang on, that doesn't, and we need to rewire and rewire a few different times. But when you meet a child at that moment, at that 2 or 7 or 15-year-old pinpoint when they're going through it, and helping them find their innate wisdom, they've got it. And I think because we are coaches and because their parents are looking, we're setting this amazing example and role model that we ask for help. Whereas we didn't know how to. We weren't taught that, because it was, very, okay, we just deal with it in our house, or we don't worry about it, we shut it down. So the generations are changing, and the kids are expressing, although some of them in unhealthy ways. We're now teaching them to go, it's okay. What are you feeling? How do you progress through that? And once they've got that ingrained into their nervous system, into their strategies, I think about the 20-year-olds that are going to be in the world then, you know, so it's really, really powerful. So yeah, that they particularly choose. And I always give them the choice. So say if I've got an autistic child and they've done their session and they're 30 minutes in, and then they have a shutdown, like you said, maybe like the 50-year-old is, I give them the choice. Hey, have you finished your session today? Cool, we'll catch up later. Always letting them have control of it. They don't get choices when when you're under 18. You're very depending on homes and teaching and whatever else. So I always allow choice in my sessions, and that allows that personal power to build, and them to build on their own intuition. Mm.
For those who are watching on YouTube, Facebook, and my social media, please stay tuned for more incredible interviews like the one we have with the wonderful and my new best friend, Nichole. And we will be back for more. So stay tuned, everyone. That brings me to a point where, as you mentioned, it's their buying is a lot faster because they're more open to it, right? Whereas adults were probably like, okay, what about this? What about that? What about the kitchen sink? And
Correct.
I think that's probably how we try to justify or maybe rationalize it in our own mind, because we have, and this is going to be like an old saying, we're so stuck in our way that
Mm-hmm.
when someone tries to pull us out of something, it's like uncomfortable. It's like, cool, I don't want to go there. It's kind of scary, but scary is good. That's where you learn. That's where you grow. That's where you understand. Um, for the children and the parents, do you find as you're working with them, there's that unity towards the common goal of saying, my child is going to get better. Let's do this as a family.
Yeah, 100%. It really draws into family therapy. It draws into the parents wanting to learn these techniques themselves. Like,